So this is one of two machines a coworker brought me to fix for him. And I've already kind of looked at it a little bit. It needs a new gas cap, which I'm going to have to get. I don't think I have any extras of these, but these style gas caps, I seem to see this quite a bit on these older Briggs. The ratchet inside them just quits working. So it's best to just replace them. I think they're pretty inexpensive. The air filter in it's new, or newer. We'll check the plug. The oil is definitely dirty, so we'll change that. I wouldn't be surprised if it's got the original oil in it from when it was brand new. Blade's in good condition. Underside of the deck's in really good condition. Based on the clippings that he's got in the bag, he's using it for some weed control. That or an animal has been living inside it. I haven't taken this off yet. So let's see what's in the bag. Maybe there's a possum inside, maybe not. No black widows, no spider webs, so that's good. So it's just had a quick hose down. First order of business is to take off this top cover. Spider check. So this is possibly where our issue is. You have a choke that's not wanting to move. So this issue is actually really common. When these full metal carburetors get gummed up and they've got this automatic choke assembly in them, they get gummed up generally right here. And you can actually see the old gummed up varnish that's stuck in there. Let me get a flashlight. That's the problem. Carburetor needs to be cleaned out. I don't know if I have any extras of these on hand. Most of the time I just replace them now. It's become cost effective to do that. So we're just gonna remove that. Kind of just set that aside. You don't really need to mess with it or remove it any further than that. Just need to get it off the carburetor. So now you have these 3 bolts that you'll have to remove. And we're just gonna pull this off. Yeah, I'm gonna check my parts hoard and see if I've got a new carburetor. So all we have to do now, pull off the fuel hose. Almost forgot I had my handy line remover pliers. Came off nice and easy. Now 3/8. Then we have this linkage here. So you just kind of rotate her around, up and off, just like that. So heard back from the owner. He said to go ahead and use the aftermarket one. No problem with that. So I'm gonna get a rebuild kit for this on my own, put it back together and rebuild it at a later date. Those clips for this carburetor will be in that video. So that'll be a separate video. But anyways, let's go ahead and install this. It's definitely the easier option. Everything seems to work okay. I can tell because I've put on I don't know how many of these quantum carburetors that this carburetor is set up correctly. It's the correct unit. Right, so I just used my vacuum to clean this up. Not perfect, but good enough. First thing, when you go to install your carburetor, make sure that this little O-ring goes on that intake rather. Just slides right on, just like that. Now all you have to do is just get the carburetor on. This linkage here goes in just like this. And then that goes over the intake. Install your 3/8 inch bolts. So our vane's back on. Actuates just like it should. Now the trick with this bolt is you do not want to tighten this very tight. And all I'm going to do is just put a 1/4 inch ratchet on the end of it and just give it just a really quick snug, and then test it, because if you tighten that too tight, it will stop this from moving freely. You want it just enough so it's not going to back out on its own. That's what I did. So that's all done. Linkage is good. So all we have to do now is just put fuel line back on. Pliers with the fuel line here. Put this PCV hose back on. Now we have this other very important gasket. This can only go on one way, so make sure that you stick it on right. Press it onto the pins, just like that. And now, with these, what I like to do is line that little nub up for the PCV, and then just kind of put it on. So with these, it's pretty important when you put these bolts in, and when you cinch them down, you don't want to overdo it with the torque, because you'll risk warping this filter box. So going back on, so with these aftermarket carbs, one thing that I like to do with everything still off like this is go ahead and let the fuel in. This is fresh fuel, so I'm not really too worried about it. But letting the fuel flow into the carburetor bowl will tell us if we've got a float issue. And if it starts leaking gas, then we know that there's something wrong with the aftermarket carb. I'm also going to pull the blade off, sharpen that. So while it's flipped over, we're going to dump the oil out, change that as well. Let it do its thing. Nice and black and dirty. Let's get started on that blade. Disconnect the spark plug first. Now, one good thing on these old Quantums, if you choose to, they do have a drain bolt here, which all you need is a 3/8 inch ratchet or an extension, and you can undo that and then basically change your oil from that point. But from here, I'm just going to pull the blade off and sharpen that at the bench. And other than being a little rusty, this blade is balanced just fine. So I'm not worried about that at all. Just needs a good sheen on the edge and should be good to go. So in situations like this, the blade overall looks to be in pretty decent condition. So we're just going to do a quick sharpen. Blade's back on, no issues there, nice and tight. Let's get her back on to the correct side. That oil is done being drained. And one thing that's always good to check, don't mind the debris that's in here, you always want to look at the oil and make sure there's not a sheen to it. Because if there is, generally that's bearing material or rings. And when that stuff degrades due to lack of oil changes or running the machine low on oil, you're going to see it in the oil. So always check the oil, especially if it's like really black like this. Just see if there's any metal shavings in it. This oil seems to be pretty good, other than being, you know, blacker than black. Definitely needed to be changed. Oil of the day is some Quaker State, which in all honesty is overkill for a lawnmower, but we're going to run it. That's what I got left of this jug anyways. Couple splashes. And let it settle. While the oil's settling, we'll pull the plug and check it. A little dirty, not too bad. Just cleaned it off a little bit with the blowtorch. So we'll just stick her back in. So just check the level. right where it should be, right below the letter F. When we run it for a little bit, let's put the spark plug wire back on. See if we can get a start out of it. So here's the air filter. I did vacuum it out a little bit, but the pleats are still a little bit dirty. I could blow this out with an air compressor and put it in a beater mower later on. So I'm just gonna keep it and give him a brand new one. Well, air filter's back on, beauty cover's back on, spark plug's connected. Let's see if it'll give us a start. Runs perfect now. Just got to give it a bath with the pressure washer. I'll use the pressure washer that I'm fixing for the guy. But it runs nice. That's all just water right there. Don't worry about that. I hosed it off. But it runs good. Not bad for a beater. So like I said, just gotta clean it up a little bit with the pressure washer, and the bag's nice and clean now. Probably spray that off too though. And that's pretty much it. And I'll be ready for him to pick up. Probably spray it with some WD-40, but this lawnmower is a 2004? 2008. So it's about 15 years old. And it still runs good, just needed a little bit of maintenance to be caught up on.